Welcome to On Work and Revolution, where we talk about what's shaking up in the world of work and EdTech. I'm your host, Debbie Goodman, and today we have as our guest, Kevin Zhang. So Kevin is principal at GSV Ventures. If you're in the EdTech ecosystem, you'll undoubtedly know this very prominent venture firm. But in case not, GSV is an early and growth stage fund investing in pioneering EdTech entrepreneurs globally. Here's a fact that I did not know. The pre-K to grade education and skills sector is worth approximately $7 trillion globally. And GSV Ventures is currently and intending to continue to play a significant role in the growth and transformation of this sector. So prior to GSV, Kevin was a consultant at Bain & Company in Boston, Shanghai, San Francisco. He's also been an operator, not a usual thing for a consultant. He was Chief Operating Officer and General Manager at the Stanford Daily Publishing Corporation. He's a Princeton grad and a water polo player. I think I've asked you this before. Do you still play water polo, Kevin?
I do a little bit. I love coaching water polo and swimming.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, welcome. Kevin and I met last year, actually, during prep for the ASU GSV Summit in 2022. And we're now way on the other side of the 2023 Summit. And I'm looking forward to this conversation to discuss what's shaking up in the world of EdTech right now with a specific focus on the future of learning in corporations, the workplace learning sector, which is a big area of investment for GSV Ventures and many others in the space. So a formal and informal hello and welcome, Kevin.
Hi, it's great to be here. Thank you.
It is lovely to be here. Okay, so we have spoken on numerous occasions, and I've heard you say this a couple of times, that these days the most important school in the world is the enterprise, the corporation, and then you've also said, or asked the question, how do we make enterprise learning the top priority for CEOs? So that's a great question. And my question is, why even should it be a top priority for CEOs?
Yeah, well, I think we're in this really interesting moment in time right now where there's a lot of fear in the workplace, just given what's happening with AI and automation. Right, there's plenty of different data points and different reports, and everyone's job really is in some way going to be impacted by this new technology. I think when there's fear in your people, it makes doing business hard, and obviously every company's most important asset really is their people. It's increasingly becoming that. What we see in recent data is that what people value most in a job is actually the chance to learn, grow, and advance their careers.
Yeah.
The McKinsey report recently really showed that, and I think COVID really was a key catalyst for that newer way of thinking. The best companies are going to be ones that take care of the people the best, and a core part of taking their people well is really enabling them to learn, grow, and reach their full potential. So, we're crazy bullish at GSV on technologies that are able to unlock people's potential from pre-K to grade, but especially in the workforce as well. And we think that it's the best CEOs of the next generation are really going to be ones that know this intimately and partner with the most innovative technology companies that are transforming workforce learning.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Every piece of data that I've seen coming out of Microsoft, LinkedIn, all the places that have got access to huge numbers of data points is around how do you attract and retain really great talent, learning and ongoing opportunity for the personal development, professional development, promotional growth is one of the biggest factors, right under good money. So it's really close there. Great boss, a good package, and then the opportunity to learn. You've got an employee for as long as you want them.
Yeah, and actually, I think the data showed that it flipped. In which case, nowadays, and of course, the data is data, but I think more and more employees are actually valuing the growth opportunities even over compensation. Right, which is fascinating, and we'll see how that kind of goes. And of course, it's just a couple data points here and there, but I think they're becoming equal, if not more important.
Right. Okay. So the center of workplace learning, typically, particularly in larger corporations, is in the Learning and Development Department. I don't know that title or department name has changed too much over the decades. It's where all the training of staff happens, the leadership and management programs. But there's been a massive change to what happens in these L&D areas. I mean, there used to probably just be one person that worked on training manuals at some point. And now it's a flourishing, thriving heartbeat of many large corporations for the very reason we've just spoken about. And I imagine looks quite different now during and post-pandemic and currently grappling with AI. And you guys at GSV are obviously trying to understand, what's happening in these areas. What are you seeing? How are L&D leaders responding to the current era of this work?
Yeah, I guess taking a couple steps back, a little context. At GSV, because we're a sector-focused investment firm, we just have an expansive network of different stakeholders in the education system, whether it's principals, superintendents, higher ed administrators, et cetera. And in the workforce, we have a lot of chief learning officers and chief people officers, CHROs, who we connect with regularly. And it's obviously been a fascinating time to be somebody in one of these roles. But I think what we've really seen in the last few months, and we've been honestly impressed, many chief learning officers and people leaders are leaning hard on the AI stuff. I think there's this, certainly in the past, ed tech often was a laggard in adoption of technology. I think we're seeing that be a bit different in this kind of cycle, where I think we're seeing fairly quick adoption of some of these new technologies in L&D departments, or even just L&D departments thinking through how to upskill their employees. There's a couple massive Fortune 500 companies that we know who are working with really small startups to upskill their employees in different AI technologies. And we've got CLOs and CHROs thinking about, how do you prepare employees if they do get disrupted for their next job or next career in very meaningful, tangible ways with dollars at work at this. So it's been encouraging in ways, but also quite scary.
Okay, so we're already in the thick of talking about AI and the impact on organizations and how CEOs, CHROs, CLOs, chief learning officers are needing to start thinking about preparing their workforces for a future that is yet to be determined. There's certainly a lot of excitement and trepidation, both of those things. And what I heard you say a minute ago was how some of these massive large corporations are starting to work with these like early stage startups who can offer something impactful, new into the ecosystem. So let's talk about this from an investment point of view. For many large organizations, they typically work with an incumbent technology, particularly if it's an enterprise-wide technology, and then it takes so long to implement the change management process to incorporate a big enterprise-wide solution is just expensive and long, and so they just stick with it because it's what they have until they've got to go through the next round of deciding if they're going to try something new. Is this presenting opportunity for small AI-enabled ed tech products and services and companies out there?
Yeah, there's many ways to answer. Yes and no, to be honest. I think on the yes, I'll go a little bit into, I think, what is kind of a shining example of one of these partnerships, which is Guild and Walmart. Guild and Walmart, their partnership, and which has been long-standing, has led to Walmart being able to offer a free degree to 4 million plus employees. And Guild now is a much larger company, one of the fastest-growing companies in education. It wasn't when this partnership started, and so I think that was incredible. And I think we will see more companies, more enterprises continue to take risks on smaller companies, and partly inspired by this partnership. And I think also AI just leads to so much urgency for companies to innovate, for enterprises to innovate and think about doing learning or doing even work differently. Now, the challenge we're seeing with AI startups, I think there's a couple things that are a little bit challenging for AI startups, specifically innovating in learning. The first is there's so many companies trying to do the exact same thing.
Right.
And so there's a lot of copycats right now. And I think when that's the case, it is hard for enterprises to take a company super seriously. I think there's plenty of pilots. There's a saying in this world, there's death by 1,000 pilots. Like that can happen.
Death by 1,000 pilots. Oh my goodness.
Correct.
Okay.
That can happen. And so we are seeing quite a bit of piloting and experimenting, but in terms of somebody actually leaning in, it's going to take some time, and that's okay. I think we're fully aware, and a startup should be fully aware. Like that's not necessarily a bad thing. But I do think that if you are an enterprise in this space, it's hard to really totally figure out your AI strategy right now. Just there's so many things are moving. The models are getting better, or maybe they won't get much better. We'll see. The exact jobs that'll be disrupted. Like we will see. There's a lot of the exact company that's going to actually stick around and have a mature enough management team to not burn all their cash. Like that's still early. The companies are actually going to have the right products that actually work for an enterprise use case, which is mission critical, where you can't have hallucinations at a rate that ChatGPT does. Like we will see. It's still a little unclear who those companies are going to be that are going to be reliable for an enterprise use case. So it's a bit of the wild, wild west right now, but I do think that it's just a fascinating time. I mean, it's a fascinating time to be in this space.
It's fascinating and must be a little overwhelming as
Yes.
as both an investor and perhaps a corporation looking at the myriad new startups in the space and trying to figure out like where should the investment go. I guess that's your job, and I imagine you've got your rubric and criteria as any new hype, any new technology comes to the scene, but this has just been so fast and so furious and so potentially impactful in a way that hasn't happened really in this space for a couple of decades. So is everybody still sitting on the fence, like wait and see, from both an investment point of view as a venture firm and also as a corporation? Because to start trying out, as you said, death by 1,000 pilots, how do you know what to do? It sounds to me like there's still some way to go before actual decisions get made. And at the same time, in order for the technology to evolve, there needs to be an influx of money in order to support these startups to develop the technology. So who's the chicken and who's the egg here?
We personally, I can only speak kind of for ourselves personally, and I guess a little bit of the market, but it's the action is definitely happening. I mean, we're aggressively making AI investments right now. We've made a number of AI investments over the last decade, really, in education. Companies like Photomath, Gradescope, Quillbot, and so we made a bunch of investments, and we are continuing to make investments in the AI space. We had a number of ones recently as well. But I think that there is certainly questions of how the market's going to evolve. But that's part of the craft of venture. I will say that we look at all our investments through what we call a 5P framework, which is people, product, potential, predictability, and purpose. I think in this, there's always a critical emphasis put on people. But I think in this environment, I think there's even a greater emphasis put on the adaptability of a founder, right? There even greater emphasis put on adaptability founder.
Okay, hold on a second. Pause there, because adaptability is something that is used in a bit of a sort of a superficial way. What does it actually mean, and what are you actually looking for when you're saying, is this founder adaptable as a key measure of potential success of an entity that we're going to invest in? How do you determine that?
Yeah, there's a lot of elements to it. It's an art and a science. I mean, obviously, we backed a former AI lead at Google that we're thrilled about. We've backed people who come from big tech companies, the Microsofts, Metas of the world, who just have the technical chops and have shown an ability to, with the technical chops, be able to move quickly and build quickly and pivot quickly and test quickly. That's adaptability, and that's kind of maybe some of the science behind it. But it's also an art form of just getting to know people and seeing how they work, how they think, how they pitch an idea, the insights they have on a market. So there's no perfect way to kind of classify it. We think about it as a team. So we'll have a team approach to deciding and kind of sussing this out. So yeah, it's a great question. It's certainly something we discuss a lot, but it's a little bit of it's certainly a mix of an art and a science.
I mean, I'm an entrepreneur myself. I'm immersed in the world of entrepreneurship. I'm surrounded by entrepreneurs who are partly very doggedly determined to reach their objective and very passionate about whatever their latest new idea is, and at the same time needing to be very responsive to what's ever happening in the market and pivot and change very quickly, particularly now. That can be tortuous for their teams who feel like every second week there's some new direction that we're moving in. The speed at which they're needing to operate and function can be very detrimental to their overall well-being. And so that adaptability, I guess, needs to be combined with some additional resilience of both the founder and their team in order to survive this market.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, resilience is certainly critical as well. I mean, we have founders like Andrew Grauer who've been at this for, I think, 15 plus years. I think about a guy like David Blake who's been at this for over a decade and has just been incredibly resilient. And thinking about all the founders and what they had to go through kind of through COVID, I think the benefit, I guess, in a weird way, is that many of the founders in this space in ed tech who've kind of experienced the ups and downs or downs and ups of COVID, there's some built-in resilience there. But yes, resilience is also incredibly important in thinking through the attributes of a great founder.
The products and companies that you invested in, let's say during COVID, because there was such a massive surge of investment happening during that time, but that now are struggling to incorporate, let's say it's an LMS or related, that's struggling to incorporate an AI enablement. What's your thinking about the future of these organizations that, great idea, certainly went through growth when everybody went online, but now we're no longer in Kansas anymore, and so the market changed again. The needs changed again. The AI startups are hot on the heels of everybody. What are your thoughts about companies that aren't either already incorporating some kind of AI or don't intend to?
We are definitely seeing, companies in our portfolio like Alernio, which formerly was Course Hero, and Coursera, and some of these companies that been around for a while, Degreed, Guild. I think be really thoughtful on how to think about incorporating AI, and it's going to be very exciting to see what they can do with their massive database of whether it's content or learner data, or even what they can do with just their distribution, which is also not something to be taken lightly as a competitive advantage, especially in B2B. Like a company like Degree has incredible distribution in the Fortune 500. So yeah, we're very excited to see what this can do. And honestly, outside of our portfolio, it's interesting to see what companies like Pearson and Cengage are doing in this space. Duolingo obviously would be another great example. So I do think that it leads to kind of the broader question of who's better positioned, the incumbents or kind of the newer players. Uh-huh. It's still a little hard to say. I think Conmigo's example is going to be very important to follow. Obviously, Chegg has the Cheggmate coming out soon. We're following all of these very, very closely. I think it's a little too early to tell who's going to be really advantaged. And I think my personal opinion is that you'll see it won't be a clear winner one way or the other. I think you will see great companies come out from the incumbents who make kind of AI leaps and new startups that are really AI native and start as AI companies, kind of gain great scale. It's, again, as I mentioned earlier, it's a really exciting time to be in the space, observing what happens to these players.
Yeah, I always think if I wasn't in my job, I'd like to be in your job, because then you get to see from a slightly different perspective all the new cool technology and what's right at the cutting edge, and how people are actually figuring out how to navigate and sell and make it work on the ground so that it impacts people, which is very, very exciting. I mostly get to see things from we now need a new chief learning officer, or now we need a new head of product or head of sales or a chief revenue officer. And we get slightly on the tail end of seeing when companies are ready to hire their leaders, that's where we get involved. But I'd certainly, I'm always excited to hear about all of the growth, and so many of the brands that you've spoken about. I watch them too, and agreed, very excited to see and this next wave of growth in the sector, because there was the COVID moment and then a little bit of a stagnation, it felt like. And now we're in it feels like there's another massive surge, a bit of a race. But I'm very excited to hear you say there's not going to be a clear winner. Hopefully everybody gets a piece of the action. And always for the new startups, and let's hope even more so for some female-founded startups, that they'll be getting some of the piece of the pie, please. Do you guys have a focus? I know that Deborah is a massive champion. Deborah Quazzo is a massive champion of female founders. And do you have anything specific in the portfolio that focuses on that?
Yeah, we have some incredible female founders. I mean, Rachel Romer from Guild would be a great example. We have a bunch of Julia Stieglitz, who was a partner with our firm now, then co-founded a company called Co-Rise. She was an early employee at Coursera. It's also an incredible example. We have a bunch of other amazing female founders like the folks at Athena, Roxanne and Anne, and you've got some other smaller companies like Linguistic is a company we backed recently, led by a woman named Victoria. Yeah, it's amazing. You know, EdTech is actually, out of all the different subsectors of technology, one of the most diverse subsectors, which we're so thrilled by. And our summit is such a great example of that. The ASU GSV Summit, which you mentioned earlier, you know, we have just an incredible amount of female leaders who come, and you know, you can look at the panels. Every panel is 50-50 male female usually, or even maybe more. You know, sometimes they're all female, sometimes they're majority female. You've got our GSV, the entrepreneurship competition called the GSV Cup, which has, I forget the exact numbers, but also an incredible amount of, you know, female and diverse representation. So it's something that we, you know, our North Star is that all people deserve equal access to the future. And so that just underpins everything that we do. The investing, the summit, how we select speakers, everything. So.
Okay, well, I can absolutely vouch for the fact that this is not just the typical trotting out of lip service that many companies do. I know that you guys are really like fighting the fight, and you have a pioneer in your leadership team who's certainly leading the way. Kevin, this has been amazing. I was going to end off with saying, what are you feeling most encouraged about? But you already answered that question. So I am going to continue to watch the space. I'd love to catch up with you another time to hear what's coming down the pipe, or up the pipe, or in the AI pipe. So we'll pick this up another time, but it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Bye now. Thanks for hanging around all the way to the end. It would mean the world if you would rate and review on Work and Revolution on your favorite listening app. It helps people know that the show is worth listening to, and so I'll really appreciate that. Thank you so much.